Welcome dear viewers to the video on ICH efficacy guidelines. In this video, we will see the ICH guidelines for efficacy as an overview. So ICH has developed many guidelines which are related to the quality, safety and efficacy of the pharmaceuticals. Also, many of the multidisciplinary guidelines are also there for the safe and effective medicines. So mainly in this video, we are going to see the guidelines related to the efficacy. See, the ICH has developed many of the guidelines, and ICH efficacy guidelines are very important because these ensure the global standards for the medicine's safety and effectiveness. The ICH efficacy guidelines give the assurance for the efficacy of new drugs, new formulations. These guidelines helps to streamline the regulatory approval process across the regions and facilitate faster access for the new medicines. These guidelines promote consistency in drug development. These protect the patient safety, encourage scientific research, scientific innovation, and reduce the unnecessary testing. So, ICH efficacy guideline harmonization is very beneficial for the pharmaceutical organizations, pharmaceutical companies, and the patients. These guidelines also help to reduce the medicine cost and also speed up the process for availability of medicines to the patients. Many guidelines are there for the efficacy. One by one, we will start to see. So first E1 guideline, it is efficacy related guideline. E1 guideline is clinical safety of drugs used in the long term treatment. So many of the medicines are used as acute treatment and many of the medicines are used for long term treatment. ICH E1 guideline related to the clinical safety of drugs which are used in the long term treatment. The extent of population exposure to assess the clinical safety for drugs intended for long-term treatment of non-life-threatening conditions. See, because life-threatening conditions will require immediate and acute treatment. Provides guidance on the number of patients to be exposed to a new drug during clinical development to assess safety for long-term use. So this is regarding the E1. Now E2 guideline is for pharmacovigilance and guidelines related to pharmacovigilance are from E2A to E2F. So E2A guideline is clinical safety data management. Definitions and standards are there in the guideline for expedited reporting. This guideline outlines how safety data should be collected, managed and reported in the clinical trials. Mainly this guideline focus on expedited reporting of adverse drug reactions. So this is the guideline related to safety in pharmacovigilance. Then E2B, clinical safety data management, data elements for transmission of individual case safety reports. This guideline describes the structure and format for transmitting individual case safety reports, harmonizing safety reporting requirements. E2C is for periodic benefit risk evaluation report and it provides guidance on preparation of periodic safety updates including the benefit risk analysis of the drug on its approved usage. ICH E2D is post approval safety data management. Definitions and standards for expedited reporting is in the E2D guideline. E2D guideline also deals with the handling and reporting of adverse drug reactions that arise post-approval. E2E guideline is pharmacovigilance planning related guideline. E2E guideline provides guidance on creating a pharmacovigilance plan based on the drug's safety profile and identifying risks that require further monitoring. E2F guideline is development safety update report. It focuses on the preparation of safety report for drugs in the clinical trials, integrating the latest safety information. So in short, you can remember that E2 guideline is for pharmacovigilance. Then E3 guideline, E3 is related to structure and content of the clinical study reports. E3 is efficacy reports, structure and content of clinical study reports. It provides a standard format for presenting clinical study data in the reports, ensuring uniformity and completeness in clinical submissions. So E3 guideline is the structure and content of clinical study reports. E4 guideline is for dose response. Dose response information to support drug registration. This guideline offers guidance on the collection and analysis of dose response data to support optimal dosing recommendations. E5 is for ethnic factors. ICH E5R1 ethnic factors in the acceptability of foreign clinical data addresses the acceptability of foreign clinical data by considering ethnic factors that may influence drug response. E6 guideline is for good clinical practice. GCP. GCP guideline, that is E6 guideline for good clinical practices or practice, use details for setting out internationally accepted guidelines for conducting clinical trials, ensuring the protection of participants and data integrity. E7 guideline is geriatrics. This guideline is for studies in support of special population, geriatrics. It provides guidance on clinical evaluation of drugs in elderly populations or aged populations or geriatrics, you can say, geriatric patient population, considering the age-related pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic changes. So E7 is for geriatrics. E8 guideline, general clinical trials. It involves general consideration for clinical trials, covers the general principle for designing, conducting, and analyzing clinical trials to ensure high quality and reliable data. Then E9 guideline, statistical principles for clinical trials, provides guidance on application of statistical method in design, analysis, and interpretation of clinical trials. E10, control groups. E10 guideline is for choice of control groups and related issues in clinical trials. It offers guidance on selecting appropriate control groups for clinical trials, such as placebo control, active control, and historical controls. So you might have seen this terminology, or you might have gone through this terminology like placebo control, active control, and historical control. So E10 guideline is there from the ICH efficacy guideline series for these control groups. These control groups are made for making the comparisons. E11 guideline is for pediatric populations. Like recently we have seen the geriatric population guideline. Now E11 guideline is for pediatric population. Clinical investigation of medicinal products in the pediatric population, and it provides recommendations for conducting clinical trials in pediatric populations considering ethical and safety concerns. E12 guideline is for antihypertensives. E12 deals with the principles for clinical evaluation of new antihypertensive drug, offers guidance specific to clinical evaluation of antihypertensive agents. E14 QTC intervals. ICH E14 clinical evaluation of QT/QTc interval prolongation and proarrhythmic potential for non-antiarrhythmic drugs provides recommendation for assessing the effects of drugs on QT/QC intervals to avoid potential cardiac risk. So simply, this guideline is for assessing the effect of drugs on the heart. E15 guideline is for genomics. Definition of genomic biomarkers, pharmacogenomics, pharmacogenetics, genomic data, and sample coding categories. It defines key terms used in the pharmacogenomics and personalized medicine. E16 biomarkers. It is for qualification of genomic biomarkers. E16 guideline provides guidance on qualification of genomic biomarkers in drug development, addressing how biomarkers can support regulatory decision making. E17 guideline is for multi-regional clinical trials. General principle for planning and design of multi-regional clinical trials focuses on the design and conduct of clinical trials across multiple regions to meet global regulatory requirements. E18 genomic studies. Genomic sampling and management of genomic data. E18 guideline provides guidance on collection, storage, and use of genomic data in clinical trials, ensuring the proper management of genomic samples. E19 guideline is for optimization of safety data. E18, E19 guideline focuses on optimizing the collection of safety data in late stage clinical trials. That's why reducing unnecessary data collection while ensuring the safety. E20 guideline is for adaptive clinical trials. So it is newer guideline and many of the professionals are not much aware about the adaptive clinical trials. So adaptive clinical trials involves bioequivalence trials also, and this guideline provides the recommendation for use of adaptive designs in the clinical trials, allowing the modifications based on interim results without compromising the study's integrity. Simply it means that you can have some flexibility in the clinical trials with the written protocol. E21 is inclusion of pregnant and breastfeeding individuals in the clinical trials. E22 is for general consideration for patient preference studies. So these are the guidelines related to efficacy, and in the upcoming videos we will see each and every guideline in detail. This was the basic for ICH guidelines, and it was a overview for the ICH efficacy related guidelines. Many guidelines are there, and if you start reading those guidelines, you will get a very good knowledge and you will have good understanding about these topics. Whenever you will come across some terminologies, that time if you are reading those guidelines, you will get benefit out of this. So I hope this video will help you to have brief understanding about the ICH efficacy guidelines. Thank you for watching the video, and let's meet you soon with such kind of informative videos. Thank you.